Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Search Off the Record podcast. Our plan is to talk a bit about what's happening at Google Search, how things work behind the scenes, and who knows, maybe have some fun along the way. My name is John Mueller. I'm a search advocate on the search relations team here at Google in Switzerland. I'm joined today by Martin.
Moinsen.
And Gary.
Meow.
Both are also on the search relations team and are actually pretty friendly humans, too.
Well, sure.
Sorry to throw you under the bus like that, Gary. Anyway, in the last episode, we reflected a bit on last year, 2021, and we talked a bit about how things went. So today, we want to look a bit forward and kind of wonder, what is going to happen with the rest of 2022? What all do we have lined up? I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned. So first off, voice search. What do you think, Martin? Is it going to be the year of voice search?
Yeah, totally. 2022 is both the year of voice search and Linux on the desktop, I'm sure.
What are your thoughts, Gary? Is it going to happen?
I don't have thoughts.
Oh, so you're like a voice search person then. It's like you like to speak instead of think.
Why do you hate this horse? Stop beating it.
Oh, man. Yeah. It feels like voice search used to be a really popular topic, but it kind of has died down a little bit. And I thought in the beginning, with the pandemic, everyone working from home, you'd be able to speak to your computer because nobody is around to make you look foolish for that. But I don't know how it is for you all, but at least for me, it's I don't even speak with my computer anymore.
No, me neither. Also, if you're on a video call, you don't really want to mute yourself just to speak to your computer for something else. It would be weird, wouldn't it? But I gotta admit, I am speaking to my car. That does happen.
Is it who's a good car?
No, it's more like navigate to this and that place or turn on the windshield wipers or something like that, because then I don't have to take my hand away from the steering wheel too much, which is nice.
You mean from the self-driving car steering wheel?
Yeah.
I should try that. I wonder if I'll be as successful as you, Martin. So one of the things I heard more towards, I guess, the last part of last year is that people are not really as happy with the way that we're crawling and indexing content. Do you think that's something that'll pick up this year, Gary?
I mean, we are definitely thinking more about the sustainability of crawling and indexing. So probably we are going to focus even more on those topics this year in 2022.
Sustainability, is it gluten-free and vegan?
Yes, Martin. We are feeding Googlebot with salad.
Salad. Is that the only thing you think vegans eat?
Just got here. I was trying to think of non-brand vegan food, and I couldn't come to anything. And then I realized that, you idiot, all vegetables are vegan. But I was the Whataburger and whatever. Yeah, Martin, we are feeding salad to Googlebot. Sure. No, what I mean is that computing in general is not really sustainable, and if you think of Bitcoin, for example, Bitcoin mining has real impact on the environment that you can actually measure, especially if the electricity is coming from coal plants or other less sustainable plants. We are carbon free since, I don't even know, 2007 or something, 2009, but that doesn't mean that we can't reduce even more our footprint on the environment. And crawling is one of those things that early on we could chop off some low-hanging fruits. For example, with HTTP2, we could stream better, for example, from the net, open fewer connections, and then that saved us resources, but also for the servers that we were crawling from, the servers that were hosting the sites. So we are thinking more about these things, how can we reduce even more Googlebots and other Google crawlers footprint on the internet, on the environment. And then if you think about it, one thing that we do, and we might not need to do that much, is refresh crawls, which means that once we discovered a document, a URL, then we crawl it, and then eventually we are going to go back and revisit that URL. that is a refresh scroll. And then every single time we go back to that one URL, that will always be a refresh scroll. Now, how often do we need to go back to that URL? You could say that, like, for example, if you take the CNN or Wall Street Journal homepage, which is changing every 5 seconds, then we do need to go back very often. But then the about page of either of these news outlets, they don't change too often. So you don't have to go back there that much. And often we can't estimate this well. And we definitely have room for improvement there on refresh scrolls, because sometimes it just seems wasteful that we are hitting the same URL over and over again. Sometimes we are hitting 404 pages, for example, for no good reason or no apparent reason. And all these things are basically stuff that we could improve on and then reduce our footprint even more.
Do you think that's something that Google can do on its side, or does that need extra work from the site owners?
To a large extent, I think we can do it from our side. Basically, we're rethinking how we issue refresh scrolls, but then there might be other things that we could try. And for example, Index Now, which I have a beef with that name because it's more like Crawl Now, not Index Now. It could be Index maybe. Martin, please don't start singing.
I was very close to doing that.
But Index Now could be something that might be useful, and we are running some experiments to see if that's the case. Probably it's not going to be in the form that people expect, but we'll see. But I can definitely see that it might prove useful in some cases at least.
So I guess we had something similar with sitemaps for a while. Well, I guess we still do, in the sense that people can also specify the last modification date in the sitemap file. Is that something that didn't work out so well, or are people like using that wrong? Or are we, I don't know, just not able to use that as helpfully as we could?
I think that's a combination of issues with the last mod and also the sitemap format, plus our communications documentation. I don't know. For one, what is last modification? Is it like the content changed? Is it the page somewhere changed? Did you update a footer link, or you bought some links and then, or sold some links and then you update the page to reflect those links in the page? We don't explain it well, what we are expecting from the last mod date. But the other thing is that even if we tell people what it is, generally the largest portion of the internet will not do it well. And for example, I don't know, even if there was a good WordPress plugin that generates sitemaps, because the inbuilt sitemap generator doesn't produce last mod tags. I filed a feature request, but then they closed it. So fine, I guess. But for example, the Yoast plugin, it is capable of generating last mod tags, but then we also saw that some people are modifying those last mod tags that the plugin is injecting in the sitemap for reasons. Basically, they think if they keep that tag very recent, then we are going to, the date in the tag very recent, then we are going to crawl more, which is not the case. Or maybe it will be the case for like 10 crawls, and then we figure it out that, wait, this tag is stupid, and then we are just not going to use it. But in general, we are not using that because it's just so unreliable that there's no point using it.
So I guess that's kind of also a misconception that people have, in that they think if a page gets crawled more, it'll get ranked more. Is that correct, that's a misconception, or is that actually true?
It's a misconception.
Okay. So no need to try to force something to be recrawled if it doesn't actually change. It's not going to rank better.
It doesn't make sense, right? If nothing has changed on the page, then we already know everything there is to know about that page. Why would that be a thing that makes it more relevant or more useful to users? It doesn't make sense.
Well, I don't know. You're talking about SEO, Martin.
Fair enough. But I'm also actually wondering how the Index Now API solves that problem, because I can foresee people just pushing the same URLs over and over and over and over and over again into the API, and then you have a similar problem.
I don't want to go into too much detail about how we designed our experiment, but it will essentially not allow that.
Ah, okay.
And that's also something that I would love to see in the sitemap protocol as well, because we have that endpoint, google.com/sitemap/ping or something like that. And we sometimes see that people are pinging it with every single update, which is like, do you have to, like if you are publishing every second, like you are the Daily Mail or the Telegraph or whatever, and you are publishing every second, do you need to ping every second? Or it's enough if you ping like once every 10th second or even every minute? I would love to see more guidelines on that, for example.
Yeah, there should be some sort of rate limiting, I guess.
I mean, on our end, we do have rate limits, but then that's also not transparent, because basically we are just dropping the request, the HTTP request, because, well, you are sending too many.
I mean, that sounds like something we could do, like be a little bit more transparent about the guidelines and expectations on both sides for things like sitemaps and crawling in general, I guess.
I mean, especially with crawling, there's not much for us to hide or for search engines to hide, because it's a very basic process using very basic internet architecture. And there are some quirks that maybe are IP, but even if you leave those out, you are still presenting a very good picture of how crawling works at Google or probably any other search engine.
Cool. Sounds like we can do something there. So another theme that came up, I don't know, like I guess towards the end of the last year, was like everything around outages, where like something went wrong in search or something got stuck in Search Console, and it felt like there are lots of these happening. Is that something that you think this search side will fix, so there are no more outages and like everyone will be happy?
I mean, we have outages. I mean, they are computers. Computers have outages every now and then. And we are trying to be as redundant as possible when it comes to processing units. But we are still going to have outages. One thing to note is that we did start to talk more about outages, and previously you could just not notice the outages because we were not talking about them, and it affected only a small portion of the internet, for example. And even Barry Schwartz from Search Engine Roundtable wouldn't notice them. Now we are actually talking more about them, and we are pre-announcing even those that were not yet. Well, pre-announcing an outage. That's great. That's just great. We are announcing outages even if they were not noticed externally yet, or they were noticed by a certain geographic region, for example. And at least the perception will be that we are having more outages. I think our SRE team, the site reliability engineers, they would prefer to have fewer outages, but it's up to them to make that happen. So
okay, so it's more that we've just been acknowledging them more and talking about them more. It's not actually that there are more outages.
Yeah, embracing them more.
Embracing the outages. I mean, like you said, like complex systems, they have weird quirks that sometimes turn into failures. And
yeah,
it's like, I think talking about them, explaining what's happening, explaining what we're doing on our side to fix and prevent them, I think that makes a lot of sense. So maybe we should go more in that direction, or at least be a little bit more systematic in terms of what we talk about when it comes to outages.
Yeah, indeed.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, like if we can come up with a way to prevent the outages, that might be neat as well. But yeah.
I mean, that would be ideal, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of awkward, like trying to figure out what we should say about outages when you don't have anything to test it with. It's almost like you need to have a test outage. Don't do it, Gary. Don't do it.
Well, too late.
No.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. So one of the other things I noticed that we've kept pretty stable for a really long time is the documentation around our webmaster guidelines, for example. It seems like that's something where we've kind of reached a really good point, and people seem to understand it more or less. Do you think that's something we should try to refresh a little bit?
I think it became very confusing.
Okay. More confusing, actually, not less.
So we used to have a very balanced webmaster guidelines, but then we started putting more stuff into it whenever there was a push for something like, for example, HTTPS, then ended up in the webmaster guidelines. When it was speed, then it ended up in the webmaster guidelines. When there was something else, then it ended up in the webmaster guidelines. And that's not necessarily good, because the webmaster guidelines it should be more about like, what are the basic requirements for you to get into search? Speed is not one of them. HTTPS is not one of them. So what are they doing there? And the other thing is that many of the quality guidelines were created, how many years is that? Like 15 years ago, at least. And some of the things that we have in the webmaster guidelines don't even exist anymore.
Okay.
Like, when was the last time you saw a guest book, for example? Except Martin's site.
Oh, come on. My guest book is wonderful.
That's a blast from the past.
Yeah. And then there's web position gold, for example. We still mention that somewhere in the webmaster guidelines. When was the last time you used that or even encountered that software?
Is that related to Search Console?
I am going to go with no.
I guess not. Maybe it's like something JavaScript based.
Here we are again.
And back in the days when Martin was 12-year-old and he started playing with JavaScript, then he created Web Position Gold. That was his first project.
But I like the webmaster guidelines. I don't know. Like, you think they're overloaded with stuff?
And also not very clear. Like sometimes like for example, doorway pages, if you take a look at that page, it explains what doorway pages are, but it's very general. And for example, if you have a site for every single state in the US because you have shops in all those states, then technically that's a doorway page. But does it violate our guidelines? I don't know. It depends on other factors. Like, are you trying to manipulate the search results or not?
How do you see it, Martin? Like when you're talking with developers who don't have kind of that traditional SEO background where they know about these webmaster guidelines, do you mention the guidelines to them? Is that something that they take into account, or is it basically just like if you get a manual action, then you go read the guidelines?
So developers usually don't reference them as much. It does come up every now and then because an SEO brought it up to them. So they're like, "Oh, our SEO told us about this thing, and apparently it's against the guidelines." It seems that there's not much from a developer's point of view that confuses people, so they just seem to go with it. And I sometimes reference it as well if they're doing things like doorway pages that are manipulative. Then I'm like, listen, here's the thing. This is not a great way to approach this. But I do understand that there is all this like contextualized bits and pieces where you need to be aware of the context and if it makes sense or if it doesn't make sense, if it's for manipulative reasons or if it's for good reasons. Now you have, for instance, a doorway page. But then usually developers come to me and don't bring up the webmaster guidelines, so they don't necessarily seem to be aware of them. I guess it's more an SEO audience kind of thing.
Yeah. I wonder if we should at some point kind of split them off into more technical guidelines, like what you need to do, and separate out the kind of the spam, low quality, manipulative stuff a little bit more. Because then from a technical point of view, the developers would still have enough to look at and be like, oh, like I'm fulfilling all of these requirements.
I mean, that's something that we are trying to do, or we are going to try to do this year in 2022. I'm still thinking about how to do it, because every single time we touch the webmaster guidelines, people freak out. So maybe we want to pre-announce it at one point that we are going to change a bunch of things around the webmaster guidelines and then hope for the best and maybe people will not freak out.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the goal is to make them clearer and more specific to help people more with the guidelines. So that should be good.
Sure. I mean, yeah, but if you just drop those changes, then everyone and my grandmother will start analyzing the changes and then they might read something into it that's not there. And that's what we want to preempt, ideally, basically saying that, hey, we are going to separate the technical guidelines from the quality guidelines, and we are going to be clearer in language. Plus, give more examples. For example, I don't know if we can give more examples because that depends on the web spam folk.
Can we give more examples, for example?
Yeah. I like that phrase, for example. If you listen to our past podcasts, I have at least 90 of them in every single episode, for example.
You're quite exemplary.
So you're saying we should pre-announce it somewhere where people will maybe listen and hear from us.
People never listen anywhere, do they?
They are listening to this podcast. I think that's what...
Woohoo! Okay, we pre-announced it.
I think that's a myth.
Cool. Okay. The thing with these kind of guidelines that I always run into is we try to make them clearer, and then we get 500 people coming in and being like, but what about this specific situation? And what about this? And look at these 5 things I found on the internet. It's like, what about this? It's sometimes tricky to be both clear and cover enough that like people kind of know what to do. But I guess there's also an aspect that people generally know when they're being too sneaky. So it's like we don't really need to cover all of the different ways to be sneaky.
I mean, right. But we should still cover the main ones and the more prominent ones and the ones that people talk about. Like, for example, they talk a lot about cloaking, but not in the context of hiding things from search engines for manipulating search results, but more in the context of I can only serve pages to people from India or people from the UK or people from Japan for legal reasons or whatever reasons, for policy reasons. Can I still allow Googlebot, even though Googlebot comes from a US IP? Is that considered cloaking? And technically, yes, that's the literal definition of cloaking. Will Google or other search engines penalize for it? Highly unlikely.
I mean, that's something that developers come to me with very often because of the dynamic rendering recommendation that we used to give out years ago that is now deprecated, by the way, where they're like, oh, we are serving a static version. Like, it's the same content, just we are serving like the static version of the content to bots, and then the dynamic rendered like the JavaScript-y fancy version to users. I'm like, it's the same content. You're not manipulating the search results in any way that way. It's fine. But yeah, it's these cases where people then get lost. That's true.
I mean, especially cloaking is super tricky because there's so many ways to do it in a legitimate way where people easily kind of worry that, oh, they're breaking some rule on Google's side and there'll be this giant penalty that they, I don't know, won't be able to resolve anymore. And it's something where we also kind of need to say, well, here are some technical reasons why you might do this, and here's what you shouldn't be doing.
I will go back to, like, some of the things are very archaic in our guidelines, and it would be great getting rid of those. Putting some examples in at least some of the guidelines, quality guidelines, probably not in the technical guidelines because the technical guidelines are more clear. And that's it, probably.
Okay. So if you're listening, don't freak out if we change the webmaster guidelines. Oh, should we also change the name, or?
Well, yeah.
Do freak out.
So the name should be changed, right? Because we moved away from the Webmaster Central name, so we should come up with some new name for the guidelines. Also, it should have been like Webmasters Guidelines, right?
Okay.
Guidelines for webmasters, guidelines for content owners, content producer, guidelines for web people, web folk.
Search Central guidelines. There we go. Problem solved.
Well, that's lame. But it also has to be something that we can translate to many languages, like the 18 languages that we support. So that also complicates things. And something that you can easily say, like Search Central guidelines. That's like even saying Search Central breaks my...
Oh, I have the perfect recommendation, Gary. What do you think of guideliney McGuideline face?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's
Ship it.
I am surprised because I'm 100% on board.
Moving over to something else. Back to you, Martin. Like, what do you think about events this year? Is it the time for big events, traveling to foreign countries, meeting lots of people and hugging them? What do you think? Is it time now?
Why do you have to hurt me like that? I really, really miss in-person events, but with the instability of the current pandemic situation, I don't think we can already say we have definite plans to be resuming in-person events. But for sure, we're going to have some more virtual events. If possible, we might try to figure out how to do hybrid events where we can have like local hubs or something. And if the situation allows over the summer, I hope that we can have one or more small local events, but it's definitely all up in the air. It's very unclear how we're going to proceed. What I do know is that we are definitely going forward with virtual unconferences this year. Really, really looking forward to that.
Are you thinking more of meetups or more like what we had, like the Webmaster Conference or WMConf that we had?
So I think to resume things, and also because the situation might continue to be very, very volatile, meetups make more sense for us to resume our in-person events. The Webmaster conferences were amazing and I loved them, but I don't feel confident in organizing. It also needs a longer timeline. Like you need to start planning these things months ahead, and then people usually travel across continents, which is probably not the best idea right now. And I don't see that happening. I'd rather have us try to do things that we can, if push comes to shove, cut short last minute if it has to happen. We tried to have a pilot event last year in December in Zurich with like 40 people and a small local meetup group hosted at the Google offices, and then our team would have joined. But guess what? That didn't happen. And it proved that everyone was kind of fine with it because no one had to invest much into it. So when we canceled literally like the week before it would have happened, everyone went with it. Everyone was like, yeah, sure. No, that makes perfect sense. Right. It doesn't make sense to run these events. So I think local small meetups will be a thing that we can probably do. And I am seeing myself doing short haul travel, like maybe to Germany, maybe to Austria, France, Netherlands, probably. I think we can do something there. Also, we have offices there, so the venue issue is not really an issue. We don't have to like rent an external venue, because if you rent an external venue, then canceling becomes trickier. And yeah, I think it's going to be more meetups.
So I guess also like short-term organization. It's like, by the way, in 3 weeks we will have a meetup, and if you're there, come and join us, kind of thing.
Yeah, because then that makes planning a lot easier. And I'm really, really, really worried about people who are like looking out for our events and then going like, oh, there's something. I live in the US, but there's something in Switzerland, so I'll just book flights in the hotel and go there. Because then I fear disappointing these people when they come over and I have to pull the plug last minute. But then again, that's the risk that people need to take. So I do hope that we can organize lots of local events across the globe if possible. But please, 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 people out there, be patient with us. I'd rather not take too much of a risk here.
Can we do one in Japan?
Actually, we are planning a virtual unconference for Japan. Oh,
no, like a live one.
Maybe. Do you wanna? Do we wanna? Okay, you wanna do Japanese spaghetti?
We could do a road trip with your car, Martin.
Yeah.
Okay, nah. Google, navigate to Tokyo.
Fantastic idea. I'm not sure my range is large enough for that. But Yeah, Gary, let's definitely talk about it. I think that's something that we might want to look into if the situation allows. At this point, I don't think anytime soon, though. But I would love to go back to Japan.
Why Japan, Gary? Is like, apart from the spaghettis.
Can you stop calling it spaghettis?
Maybe I should go at some point. They'll be like, John, this is not spaghetti.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Japan is one of those countries that we always loved, as in Google always loved. And I think it was the first international office that we opened that was in Japan, in Tokyo. I think it was 2003, 2001, something a long time ago. And there's a lively community there, both developer community and SEO community. Second most read language in our search documentation is Japanese. So it feels like it should be one of those countries where we should invest more. Unfortunately, we don't have a Japanese speaker on our team. So we, for example, don't even know if our docs make any sense, or we are using the wrong word for certain things. For all those reasons, it would be good to focus more on Japan, just figure things out.
I think it's also one of those countries where people tend not to speak English that much, or is that misconception?
No, that's true. It's difficult, especially if you go outside the city, like Tokyo or Osaka, maybe. It will be very, very difficult. Like, even if you go to Nagano City, for example, buying a bus ticket was impossible in English. Like, you actually had to speak Japanese with a color.
Wow. Okay. So I guess if I go, I should stay in Tokyo. Unless I want to live there forever. It's like, I want a bus ticket home.
So the interesting thing is that the Japanese people are extremely helpful. So they will go out of their way to try to understand you, even if they don't speak English. Like, they will find you a map from the Edo period, like from the 1600s, and point you out, like, are you trying to go from this point to this point, or find ways to help you, even if they don't speak English and you don't speak Japanese. And for that, it's amazing. Like, I strongly recommend going out of Tokyo if you're ever there, and just experience the non-big city Japan, because it's absolutely worth it.
Okay. So it's like a terrible time to try to encourage people to think about traveling to other countries. I don't know.
I mean, right now you can't even get to Japan, or get into Japan. So it's not like I'm encouraging people and they will jump on a plane and get there.
Okay.
Because they just can't enter the country.
It's also that I think both we as well as the community do miss the in-person events. It's just we have to be a little more patient, I think, and large events will just take us longer to get back on track. So yeah, we all have to be patient, which is something that I'm absolutely not.
Yeah. We're not patient. We're not patient. We care about speed and page experience, right?
Yes, we do.
Yes. Fast websites. Fast travel. I don't know. Maybe we should just wait until there's a rocket trip to Tokyo. We can just go there for an afternoon.
Maybe. But speaking of page speed and page experience, aren't we rolling that out for desktop as well?
Yeah. I think that's coming in May, I think we announced, or something like that, or April. I forgot the actual date. I should probably know. Oh, well. Yeah. It's always, I don't know, it was one of those things which in my mind was like perfectly obvious and clear. It's like, we're doing this on mobile and the mobile search results, and we're also doing it on desktop now. But it seems that it kind of threw people off, because it's like, well, you're only indexing the mobile version of a page. How can you do speed on desktop? And kind of understanding that difference between, like, well, what we index and what we use to measure speed are different things. That takes a bit. And also the search results are slightly different on desktop and mobile. And from our point of view, that's kind of like expected. But not everyone seemed to have been aware of that. So we'll see what happens when that goes live. If people understand it a little bit better or if it's confusing again. Hopefully not too confusing. So what are some other things that we should be looking at for this year? Should we start doing, I don't know, something like short videos or, I don't know, a newsletter? Like newsletters seem to be all the rage.
On your blog.
A blog.
No, on your blog.
A newsletter on my blog.
Yeah, on johnmoo.com, we could put up a newsletter.
Okay.
With all the updates that you post.
Okay.
Maybe we should start a bulletin board.
A bulletin board. Yeah. I'm now thinking about like actually guest books. That seems like a really cool idea. Maybe we should just go back to that.
Can we just stop this before you get more brilliant ideas?
I know. We will mint NFTs with guest book entries.
Please, someone cut this.
Oh my God. You guys are not excited about the future of the web. I don't understand.
We are about the future of the web, not the
Web 3.0. It's like all about guest books and NFTs.
Oh, okay.
Where's our producer? Please cut. Please cut.
Port mission, abandoned ship.
Oh my gosh. I don't know, man. Whatever. Fine. Well, thank you for joining us here, folks. We've been having fun with these podcast episodes most of the time. I hope you, the listener, have found them both entertaining and insightful as well. But feel free to drop me a note on Twitter or on my guest book, or chat with us at one of our next virtual events if you have any thoughts. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you and goodbye, everyone.
Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.